1917, the Russian Civil War started. The newly born Bolshevik regime launched a crusade against the White Guards, who controlled the vast territory of the Siberia. As a part of the Allied force, China has sent thousands of laborers to Europe through Russia, and now they were all left stranded. One after another, the desperate Chinese pleaded the Beijing government for protection. Meanwhile, China was in the middle of a civil war between the Beijing government in the north and the Guangzhou government in the south. Worried about the safety of its overseas citizens, the Beijing government nevertheless decided to intervene. In February 1918, the Bolshevik rebels overthrew the local government of Vladivostok. In response, the Allied power, including the US, the Great Britain, and Japan, sent battleships to Vladivostok as a demonstration of their powers. A month later, the Beijing government declared that the battleship Hairong would be sent to Vladivostok to protect the Chinese citizens. This proposal was fiercely opposed by the Japanese, who have long coveted the Siberia. Japan claimed that its army in Russia would be sufficient to protect the Chinese. The Beijing government was unmoved. Under the pressure of its Western allies, Japan was forced to give in. On April 9, Hairong left Shanghai and sailed for Vladivostok. The captain of this ship was Lin Jianzhang, who would later become the commander of all Chinese forces in Russia. Ten days later, Hairong arrived at Vladivostok. This would be the first attempt by the Chinese government to evacuate its citizens abroad. For the first time, the Chinese naval flag flies in Vladivostok. As they were evacuated by the Chinese Navy, thousands of Chinese laborers and merchants were saved from the turmoil of Russia. In August 1918, the Allied forces invaded Siberia. China was among the 14 Entente powers to march into Russia. An expeditionary force of 4,000 men were sent by the Beijing government to protect the Chinese in Russia. This footage shows the Chinese expeditionary forces left Harbin and set for the Russian border. The Allied forces took Vladivostok and Assyrisk easily. The Trans-Siberian Railroad was also secured by the Allied forces. Huge military parades were held in the Allied-controlled Russian cities. The Chinese expeditionary forces holding the five-color national flag were marching behind the U.S. infantry, followed by the Chinese Navy, holding the Chinese naval flag. In this footage, we can see the Chinese Navy next to the Imperial Japanese Army. We can also see the Chinese Army marching behind the Imperial Japanese Army. As a member of the Allied powers, the Chinese Army was also in charge of maintaining the social order and protecting the Chinese citizens in Russia. In July 1920, the Allied forces withdrew from Russia. The Siberian intervention is a testimony of Beijing government's determination to protect its citizens. Over 30,000 Chinese were able to return to China in this operation, thanks to Beijing government's efforts.